Hi everyone, my name is Maha, as Nisreen introduced. I am a DC afikra ambassador, and this is my third presentation, and I'm really excited about this one. I think this is my favorite yet. But I'm going to be talking today about an interesting musical fusion, which is the band Hanine y Son Cubano, which is an Arab-Cuban band, and their seminal album, I would say Arbo Cubano, but this says Arbo Cubano, so we'll say that. So Hanine y Son Cubano is a music group that was formed in 2002. And like I mentioned, it merges Cuban and Arabic music with a really heavy emphasis on traditional Arabic ballads. And I discovered them on my quest to research more about the Arab community in Cuba because my partner is Cuban, but also through this really great book called Rebel Music. It's all about race and Islam, and it's by this great author named Hisham Adi, and he talks about it in kind of the greater context of Pan-Arabism and Latin American solidarity. And through them, I found this awesome music group. So the group was formed actually originally in the 1990s when a really famous producer, and he's often called the Prince of Lebanon or Beirut's nightlife, Michael Efradatis, came up with the music concept because he was actually exiled in Havana during the time. It led to the formation of the group, and it really paved the way for this mix of fusions between not only traditional Arabic music, but Arabic music more broadly with Cuban melodies and Cuban background. And it spoke to this new genre of tropicalism meets Orientalism, which I thought was a really fascinating way to describe both of these genres that speak to kind of larger sociocultural contexts. This is him, and this is the main singer, Hanine, who is Lebanese, and these are the members of the band who I'll get into in a bit. So as he was kind of sitting in a cafe in Havana, he was just surrounded by all these Afro-Cuban sounds, and he began to sing Esmahan's really famous song, Ya Habibi Ta'ala, which if you guys noticed on the afikra Instagram was mentioned the other day, and it was just a great insight into the group's emphasis on traditional Arabic melodies. And then of course, when we think of traditional Arabic ballads or melodies, we have to think of Esmahan, who was one of the queens of Arabic music. So the idea of this fusion came together, and it just kind of instantly, he thought it needed to come to life, and he began his quest. So I'm going to play just like 10 seconds of it so you guys get a sense of what it sounds like, and then I'll get into some of the other details. This is based on Esmahan's Ya Habibi Ta'ala. So you guys can hear, I'm almost ready to sing the song, but you can also hear in the background that really interesting, very traditional Cuban kind of melody making its way through. So the band in the group, Michael or Michel really credits the idea of longing, and I think in Arabic there's a specific term that we think about this known as ghurba, but it's really prominent in both cultures, both in Cuban culture where there's a very big emphasis on longing of the homeland by many exiled Cubans, and this also came to life for many Lebanese diaspora where there was a longing for a return to the Lebanon that they knew and wanted to be a part of. And so kind of the idea of longing in both cultures perfectly came up for him. And one of the most famous songs by this group is a song titled The Orphan, and it's essentially about that longing in the idea in both Arabic and kind of Spanish and Cuban culture. He kind of believes that the elements exist in their own world, but it just took producing to bring them together, and that these cultures were so closely tied together, and that music was the best way to showcase their fusion. And then of course he credits kind of the flamenco and a heavy Andalusian emphasis from that era that has really shaped both Cuban music and a lot of Arabic music. This is a clip of the full band. You can see that most of the band members, actually all of the band members, are Afro-Cuban, and then the main singer Hanine is here, is a young and powerful singer from Beirut, and then this is Michelle. And this is an article from 2003 where they performed in Jordan. They did a worldwide tour throughout Latin America and the Arab world. So he essentially decided that this needed to become a reality, and he knew that he wanted to include emphasis on traditional Arabic ballads. So he ensured that samples from Hamad Abdul Wahab, Abdul Halim Hafiz, Farid al-Atrash, Fairuz, and Esmahan were all in the first album, but they were rearranged in a salsa or bolero or cha-cha style that, of course, made the fusion with Cuban music possible. The album was #1 in Lebanon for a whole year. In the early 2000s. And then, of course, as I mentioned, they toured the region. So I'm going to play this really great promo clip that they did for their tour that I thought was just so cute. Stop there since we don't have that much time, but you guys can see kind of the elements of screenshots of both Beirut and Havana intertwined with, of course, that Cuban melody in the background. I thought it was really beautiful. So in order to get the band started, he auditioned hundreds of people, both in Havana and Lebanon. He wanted to choose the best of the best. And he actually was able to recruit a really big Cuban legendary vocalist, Marcelino Linares. And then he was able to recruit Hanine Abu Shakra, who is was a young singer from Lebanon at the time. But the reason he thought she was the perfect fit because of her comfort in singing kind of these classical Arabic melodies that were really important. I'm going to play just 10 more seconds of an interview with them at Arbo Cubano and in this interview, you'll see some of the Cuban band members talk about what they think about this fusion. Okay.
ما بدنا نحن لا نقشط من قيمة الموسيقى الكوبية ولا من قيمة الموسيقى العربية.
Bastante la música de Hanine, lo que me gusta es la capacidad que ella tiene igual de primero de entenderla de nosotros, y como llevo tiempo aquí ya entiendo la música árabe y ya sé cómo se mueve, ya soy un árabe, ya igual es.
So you can see there, the band members were just really impressed by Hanine's ability to kind of switch into the melodies of either culture. And I really love the line where he calls himself an Arab at the end. I just thought it was like a really beautiful cross-culture moment. So there's, I think, a larger element to the band that I think could definitely be turned into a longer presentation, so I won't spend too much time on it, but there's really important themes of Cuban folklore that are mentioned throughout the songs and even throughout the music videos. There's a specific music video where you can kind of see Hanine Abu Shakra's role as this Moresca, this like Moorish woman that has kind of an importance during the Cuban Revolution as both kind of a symbol of the colonizer, but also a symbol of the importance of kind of the next phase of Cuba. And of course, the emphasis on kind of Afro-Cubans. The video is really interesting. I encourage you guys all to watch it, but I think there's an important larger theme here about Cuba's maybe Moorish origins and Arab-Latin solidarity that come to life through this band. And I think that was Michelle's original intention, was to have this larger kind of socio-political concept through the form of music. And I think in that book that I mentioned earlier, he picks up on that as well. I'm running late on time, so I won't show this last video, but it's a really interesting, just a live performance that they did in Beirut, and it's really beautiful. You can tell that all the Cuban singers are just so excited to be there and be performing. And Sadly, they haven't released another album after this first seminal one, but you guys should all check it out. I put the playlist here and they're on Spotify. And then here are some of the resources. This is a really great resource on just an interactive visualization of the Arabs in Cuba, which I hope to turn into a future presentation later. So definitely keep your eyes out on this, but just more sources on the history of Arabs in Cuba and kind of that fusion. I think that is it.
يجيك الزور يا بابا